In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family, and welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White, where we explore the stories, the struggles, and the triumphs that shape our communities and our collective future. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and tonight we are diving into a conversation that sits at the intersection of law, leadership, education, and legacy. In every generation, there are builders, people who don't just talk about change, but design the systems, institutions, and pathways that make change possible. People who understand that justice is not just an abstract idea, but a lived experience shaped by opportunity, access, and the courage to imagine something better. Tonight's guest is one of those builders. David Edgerton III, Esquire, is an attorney, institution architect, and social entrepreneur whose work is transforming how young people, especially Black boys and young men, see themselves, their futures, and their place in the legal profession. From the courtroom to the classroom, from the pulpit to the community, David is a leader who moves with purpose, conviction, and a long horizon. He is the founder and executive chairman of Brothers in Law Incorporated, a national nonprofit creating a full pipeline into the legal profession, starting in kindergarten and stretching all the way into professional practice. His work blends mentorship, civic engagement, leadership development, and a deep belief in the right to learn, the idea that education is not just preparation for life, but the foundation of civic participation, economic mobility, and human flourishing. He is a husband, a father, a youth minister, a community builder, and a visionary committed to strengthening democratic institutions and expanding access to opportunity. Tonight, we explore his journey, his mission, and the Black history giants who shaped his path. Charles Hamilton Houston, Thurgood Marshall, Langston Hughes, and Stokely Carmichael. This is going to be a conversation about legacy, leadership, and the future we are building together. Let's get into it and let's introduce David Edgerton to the show.
Hey
Hello,
Charles, how you
sir.
doing?
I'm doing just excellent. How are you?
Listen, if you are on this side of the earth, it is a beautiful day and it's a blessed day. I cannot complain.
So, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we get into the show?
Well, one, I want to thank everyone who is joining us, whether you are brothers-in-law, my Howard community, my church community, all across the world. I really hope that this conversation can spark something that has already been ignited within you, that you understand and you know that I'm just a regular person, just like anybody else you find on the street. And there's only difference between myself and you is either time or opportunity.
And we're about to offer lots of those.
Yeah.
So let's start with a segment where I like for people to get to the opportunity to know you. So we'll call this part about your life story and your personal journey. What early experiences shaped your understanding of justice, fairness, and leadership?
Yeah. So I was raised in Minnesota in a small suburb just 15 minutes from the border of Wisconsin called Cottage Grove. And in elementary school, middle school, I was in a Spanish immersion program. And I was the only Black male in my grade, in my classes, only person that looked like me. And things were going pretty well in elementary school. And then I went on and transitioned to middle school. And in sixth grade, I'll never forget, on the first day of classes, I saw my class schedule, and it said that I was to be in remedial math and science and reading and so on and so forth. So I went to the counselor and I said, hey, there must be some sort of error. You got me mixed up with someone. I'm really should probably be maybe in the advanced classes. I don't know. But I'm fluent in a whole nother language, and I'm a sixth grader. And the counselor informed me, well, no, there was no mistake. See, statistically speaking, Black males, their grades tend to drop in middle school. And so they wanted to prepare me for that certainty by placing me in those classes. And to some may view that as, oh, well, they're setting me up so that I do not have a challenging experience. What I saw that were bullets meant to kill my ambition, that I was being predestined to fail before I was even given the chance or the opportunity to show my worth and to show my value. And luckily for myself, I come from a two-parent household. And when I informed them, they both showed up and pulled up to the school, and they asked the counselor, why are you telling my Black child, the only Black child that you have in this special program, that he is going to fail? And very quickly, as you know, as Black parents go, it changed. However, it had me thinking, well, what about the people whose parents may work, not work a 9 to 5, but work a 5 to 11, or people who may not have grown up with their parents in the first place, and they live with grandparents and guardians, what have you. The people that could not show up, that may not even be fluent in English, let alone Spanish. What becomes of them? Who's advocating on their behalf? And through that really had me thinking about, who decides the outcome for people? And is this a really fair assessment that, based off of statistics, that you place me in this category, in this mold? And I think that is the incident that sparked my desire, not only for justice for myself, but what could I be doing to build bridges, to build institutions and systems so that people that look like me do not have to go through what I went through, but are instead from day one put on a pathway towards success.
Mhm. So when you think about that experience, because that's a really interesting story, when you think about that in today's time,
Yeah.
what kind of inspiration do you get from that as you build your organization?
Yeah. So the organization that I founded my first year of law school at Howard University School of Law, it's called Brothers in Law. And the mission of Brothers in Law is to diversify the legal profession by creating a tangible pipeline into the profession for underrepresented students as early as kindergarten. And we do that through professional development, community service, mentorship, scholarship, and above all, friendship. And what sparked that, the idea is that in sixth grade, you are telling me that I'm going to fail. We know that statistically speaking, around first or second grade, those standardized test scores determine how many jail cells and how many jail buildings we build. And what if we were so proactive in the success as we were proactive in the failure or in the shortcoming or in the fall of young children? What if we told them from the moment they are born, the moment that they enter formal education, that you are somebody? And not only are you somebody, but you can go exceedingly abundantly above what your parents did, what your generations of your family have done, what your neighbors may have gone through, and you can excel. Because it's all about access and opportunity. It's not necessarily about how much money is in your bank account, but it's about what do you have within yourself that can be honed, that can be developed, that can be mentored so that you can go on and do great things. But more importantly, after you do those great things, or rather, even while you are building towards that, how are you lifting as you climb? Because I have been in rooms where I am the only one that looks like me. But I know that after me comes 10,000, right? And so when you talk about what it looks like to build an ecosystem in which every child, regardless of their zip code, regardless of how their name is spelled, the clothes that they wear on their back, that they have a pathway towards success, towards a career, not just lucrative from a financial standpoint, but the thing about learning the law is that you have an understanding on how society works. And with that understanding, you can go on and educate the next generation, but you can also educate your grandparents who may not have had that opportunity. My grandfather, he has middle school education. He worked as a blue collar factory worker his entire life. And my other grandfather, he was a construction worker. He had his own construction firm. So they weren't in the classroom, until 25 like myself. But yet they were still learning and they were still building and they were building with their hands. And so how do we create a world in which a child can see themselves in these roles, in these positions of power, in rooms that their ancestors couldn't even dream of being in? And that's really why I created Brothers-in-Law, to really be a platform for students. It's a completely student-run organization, from the department directors to our interns to a great majority of our board of directors. We really do believe in the value and the voice of the youth. And we know that just because you are young does not mean you don't know anything at all.
So, growing up, who were the people who first recognized your potential and poured into you?
I think it starts with the people that gave birth to me. My namesake, David Edgerton Jr., right? He is a Black man who navigated corporate spaces in America, attained a bachelor's degree from North Carolina A&T, an MBA, as well as another master's degree in HR. And from the moment I was born, I knew that I was loved because he told me. He told me that I was valued. He told me that you are somebody, that you are going to be something important, that you are going to go change the world. And he showed me through his work ethic. He showed me through the way that he treated community members. He always told me to treat the janitor the same way that you treat the CEO. And he instilled in me that do not let anybody take away your light. And when I think about light, I would be remiss if I did not bring up my mother, Michelle Edgerton, who, overcoming so many obstacles in life, graduated at the top of her class in high school, got the highest scholarship available. So there's still a plaque in her high school in Greenville, North Carolina. Went on and get a full ride at Wake Forest, went on to go to med school, had me in her third year of med school and said, you know what, I'm done. This is not what I want to do in life. What I want to do is I want to be a mother and I want to impact life later on. And now she sits as the chief advancement officer for the YMCA, right? My parents alone showed me that anything is possible if you have faith. If you have the faith of a mustard seed, and if you work hard and you're consistent, you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. But outside of my parents, I would say that it goes back to education. While I did have that experience with the sixth grade counselor, there are many teachers growing up. First coming to mind is Mr. Kinley, who's not even a Black person, he's a white man who taught AP world history. And what he showed me, one is that the people that are supporting you don't always look like you. And the people that value and see you may not come from your same background. But if they do see you, if they invest in you, if they are able to educate you about your world and the history, then you should take that and embrace it with open arms. There are many other teachers that I can think of, or role models and mentors, but at the top of mine, it definitely comes to my parents, my family, and the teachers that helped raise me along the way.
Wow. So with that foundation, so it's kind of like you're always reminded subconsciously of what to do, how to do, and when to do it.
Yeah,
Wow, that's powerful. That's a good thing, and that's a really good upbringing, and that's the example that I wish that many of our young kids that are in the same age range as you could have had that kind of rearing, because it makes a difference in society. It's not like you have to be like somebody else, but it's just your knowing of who you are, where you came from, and what you got to do. That's the important thing.
yeah.
Uh, So, can you tell us when did you first realize that law was your calling?
I think in high school, I originally thought my father was an electrical engineering major at A&T, worked in IT for 20 plus years. And at that time, tech was the big thing. Everybody was going to Meta, Google, what have you, getting computer science degree. So I thought that was my route until I took a class called AP Physics. And I learned very quickly. No, STEM was not for me. No, sir. Mm-mm. No. And but I was a good student, and I knew how to read. I knew how to write, and I was on my high school speech and debate team. And the thing about speech and debate, competing at the national level, is that you are taught very early on the power of your voice. You are taught how to research, how to articulate your stance, support it and back it with quantitative and qualitative evidence, as well as your own personal story. And I think connecting that with my experience in sixth grade, learning, okay, who decides what? Who holds the power to effect the next generation? That is what really led me to study political science at the illustrious Howard University, where I was taught by professors who were not only academics, but they were also, many of them, attorneys themselves. And hearing them share their experience practicing in the law, the impact you can make, learning about Charles Hamilton Houston, my fraternity brother, learning about Thurgood Marshall, learning about the impact that Black people have had on the legal, on the criminal justice system, on the judicial system here in this country and internationally. That is when I decided if I want to make the biggest change, if I want to make the long lasting, systemic, institutional change, then I must understand how you even do it in the first place. And that is by learning the law.
Wow, that is interesting. So, do you have a specialty when it comes to law?
Yes, so I am in my very first year practicing. I fortunately passed the DC bar on the first attempt last summer. And so I'm currently at a law firm where I primarily do business, commercial litigation, as well as general counsel services for social impact organizations, nonprofits, education institutions, religious institutions. The idea is to be able to utilize my legal knowledge and experience to help the least of these, to help enact change at a institutional level from for organizations and nonprofits who are in the business of making this world a better place for all.
Wow. So, how did your upbringing influence the way you lead today?
You know, my parents, as I mentioned earlier, they're from North Carolina. And So, you have Southern hospitality, that you greet everybody. That is sir, is ma'am, how you doing? You don't just get into it. But then you translate that to Minnesota, we have something called Minnesota nice. We're just, a short little drive from Canada. And when you think about the disposition of the average Minnesotan, it is an individual that is so warm, that is welcoming, that greets you with open arms, open hands. And so learning from my family, learning from the places that I've journeyed and ventured, I learned that every single person was created with a certain set of gifts and talents and skills for the purpose of serving others. And oftentimes we forget that. And what I do in any role that I'm in, whether I'm at a junior level or I'm at a senior level, is to see the human, to see the inner child in everybody, to know that, you know what, you lashed out on me, you cussed me out, called me everything but a child of God, but I don't know what's happening once we clock out. I don't know what your background, I don't know what you're going through in your family. And so I learned a lot about empathy. I learned to treat people with respect and dignity. Because at the end of the day, we are all on this pathway and in this journey called life. And we all want the same thing. And it's not happiness. It's not money. It's not cars. It's not status. Every single person in this world wants to know their purpose. Why am I here in the first place? And I think as leaders, our job is to help identify, to be able to reach individuals, to raise them, to learn and understand who they are as a person, what do they bring into this world, and most importantly, to release them out into the world. You can't just hoard someone with good talent. You can't try to minimize someone because you are afraid that they may outshine you. You have to be comfortable understanding that for everything there is a reason, there's a season, or it could be for a lifetime. But in this moment, today, I try to be as present as possible. I try to listen. Listen not to respond, but to really understand the other person's perspective. And then empower them, not just me tell them what to do, but to empower them to make their own decisions, to be able to be leaders their own selves. What good am I to give you a catfish plate if I don't teach you how to go out into the river and cast the net and be able to get your own fish?
So, what role did faith play in your development as a young man?
It played a ginormous role, really. I never forget it. It was around this time, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago. I was deciding between law school and divinity school. I come from a long line. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a preacher's grandkid, and so I decided between becoming a man of the cloth or joining the bar. And I got admitted to both Harvard Divinity School, Yale Divinity School. I received full rides, dean's scholarship, stipend, you name it. They rolled out the whole red carpet. And I was admitted to Howard Law School. And I'll never forget my wife telling me, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, telling me, yeah, you're going to law school. And I said, but they didn't give me no money. Awesome, great, love the thought, but I'm going where the money resides. And she said, no, you're going to law school. That is where you are called to go. Now you can be Jonah and be Nineveh and avoid going to Nineveh, but at the end of the day, you're gonna make your way there.
Right.
And so I got out of my own head. I collected myself, and I'll never forget. I submitted my rejection email, or declining the offers. And the very next day that occurred, I received a phone call from the president, Wayne A.I. Frederick of Howard University. And he informed me that, congratulations, you are a 2021 Harry S. Truman Scholar. And so I received a scholarship now to attend law school. So I was like, oh, well, money's not a problem anymore. I guess I'm going to law school. And it took that. Even on that very same year, we really looked at each other, my girlfriend of 3 years at the time, and he said, you know what? We're about to graduate. We're going to go to grad school. I think we need to get married. And we thought we were going to get married, probably the age that I am today. But we believed and we had faith that, you know what? I think that was the time. And we had a 4-month-long engagement. We got married a month after we graduated college, a week before my 21st birthday in Miami. And in retrospect, we could have maybe pushed that back 2 weeks. But I digress. But we got married, and we had a huge wedding. All our friends and family came together. And I needed that. I needed that in that moment. Because that woman, as soon as she became my wife, became the rock in which the firm foundation through God that changed my life, saved my life. But for her, I would not be sitting in front of you right now on this podcast. And so faith is everything to me. Faith is the reason that I was able to, after being evicted 3 separate times during law school, in my last month of school, said, you know what? I'm putting in my 30-day notice. I don't know where I'm going to go. I have no place to go. And it wasn't until several rejections that 4 days before I had to move out that we found the house that I am living in today.
Wow.
In order to achieve and reach the places where you are called to be, you must have an understanding that it will never be on your own timeline. It will never be the exact way that you think it will be. But you have to move. You have to go. And that requires faith.
Mm. So, what values from your family still guide your decision making today?
Authenticity. I grew up in a household who was not afraid to be silly. I grew up with a father not afraid to show emotion, not afraid to allow me to push back. I think that one of the biggest lessons that my parents taught me was to self-advocate. If I didn't agree with my parents on whatever rule that they may have, or not allowing me to do something, I was not just as shut down and told, go to your room, I'm an adult, you do as I say. I was told to argue my case. Tell me and articulate, not just because you feel like it, but because there are facts. There is a rationale, a tangible rationale for why you should do the thing that I told you you cannot do. And so, I never take no for an answer, at least the first time. It's about being able to be consistent in your self-advocacy, but also consistent in your understanding that not everything is going to work out the way that you want it to. Like I mentioned, my mother was in her 3rd year of med school when she had me. And then she pivoted. She said, no, that's not for me. And she doesn't have any regrets now at all, because she had an understanding that is what is for you will not pass you. And so being told my entire life that I am loved, being told my entire life that I don't care if you wear a mauve double-breasted suit with a peacock bow tie, and polka dots. If that is you, then that is you. Enabled me to have a confidence that is very rare for young Black boys today.
That is so true.
Nobody could tell me not a doggone thing, because my mama and daddy said that I am somebody and I'm special. And I know that I work hard. And if I work hard and if I have the faith, I can move a mountain. I can move 15.
Wow. Wow. You know something? I want to tell you, your parents, your parents are definitely exceptional. And they have done more than just a good job of tending and helping you to become the young man that you are, but they have paved a way that, regardless of the case, as you said before, nobody can take that away from you. You already got it and you know what's going on. I like that.
Yeah, and I always was told, unless they're gonna beat you up, now what?
So, how did becoming a husband and father shift your sense of purpose?
Wow. Yeah. So if you couldn't tell already, I was someone who really knew what I wanted growing up. At a very early age, I had an understanding that I want to be in a position to build generational wealth. I want to be able to influence and impact generations, not just individuals per se, but what can I do to impact the largest group of people? And what that does to a kid is that I was always looking at the future. I was always looking 10, 15 years ahead. Duke played today in March Madness. And I remember being in elementary school looking up the Fuqua School of Business and figuring out, okay, well, this costs this much. These are the SATs, ACT scores that I need. Okay, this is a baseline personal statement. I was doing this in elementary school. Now, that's not normal. I don't recommend that. But I was master planner. My to-do list had a to-do list, and I got every single thing done in a timely manner. And then you mess around and have a kid where your schedule is out the window. It gets thrown out completely out the window. You wake up in the morning and you have a plan for the day, and then you go to pick up and wake up the kids, and oh snap, someone has pink eye. Well, I'm not doing what I thought I was going to do today. I had to learn to adjust and adapt quickly and not let it eat at me and kill me. I was so focused on the future that I was ignoring the present, what was directly in front of me. And what's directly in front of me was not a 5-year, 10-year plan, but a screaming baby that needs their diaper changed at 4 a.m. And so I think having children taught me that, one, while I may think or I may have thought that, my main purpose and goal is to help others, that it was for selfish reasons, that it was not necessarily as genuine as it should have been. Because at the end of the day, when you have children, you learn that life is bigger than yourself. And you learn that there are a lot of things that you focused on that really do not matter in the grand scheme of things. And then even to back up, marrying a Haitian Bahamian woman from Miami, I learned to have thick skin. I learned that my feelings are not the compass for my life, but rather they were indicators of a separation between my expectation and reality. What I pictured in my head for what a wife should be, in many instances, my wife fits that description. In many other instances, she does not.
Mhm.
But I had to learn that the same way that I was once a little boy who had dreams I was once a little boy and I experienced traumatic experiences, and people hurt me, and people broke my trust, and individuals, they did whatever they could. The same with my wife. And so, not putting her on a pedestal as the, because that's what we love to do, is that as soon as we get married, us as a lot of men, we just give our wife the entire baggage. We say, okay, you take, now I'm married, okay, you handle the house, you handle the kids, you handle my finances, you handle my mental health, you do everything for me. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and work my job and bring home the bacon. My wife wasn't going for that. She said, no, you will be present for your children. You will be present for me. You aren't just going to blow off and disregard or ignore and hold all your feelings in because, happy wife is a happy life. No, we're going to have conversations. Because if I am your helpmate, if I am your rib, then that means that I need to know what is going on in your head. And so I learned that I have to be honest with my wife, not only because at the end of the day, she'll always find out anything that I do, no matter how much I try to hide it from her, but more importantly, that she sees me in a way that most people in this world will never. And you need to have people that see you in the good, the bad, the ugly, and beautiful. And you have to trust them that they know and they can see a better version of you than you can even see for yourself. And so it taught me, being a husband, being a father, taught me humility among among everything, but it also taught me perspective.
Mm, wow. Um, so let's transition over to Howard University and legal formation.
Yeah.
What did attending Howard University teach you about Black excellence and responsibility?
Mm. Attending Howard University showed me that not only is Black not a monolith, but to be Black in this world is to be beautiful, is to be golden. When you think about the actual color Black, it is a amalgamation of every single color under the sun. That is what the color Black is. And that is exactly what I saw on Howard University's campus. I met Black people from Korea, from Houston, California. I met Haitians, Jamaicans. I met Nigerians. I met Black people from Canada. I met Black people who were rich. I met Black people who were poor. I met Black people with two parents, with one parent, raised by their grandparents. I met so many different iterations of Black that I learned that even my own implicit bias, my own preconceived notion, we have this whole YN, debates and conversation in modern day. I learned by their color, but rather you use and embrace that individual for their color. I do not believe in color blindness. Everyone wants everything to be a melting pot. Howard University is not a melting pot. It is a garden salad of so many different cultures and backgrounds and experiences. And the thing about a garden salad is that you don't just get one flavor. One bite you might get an olive, another bite you might get a piece of lettuce, some tomato, a little onion. But when you put it all together, you taste each individual piece, but it makes a unique and beautiful cacophony of flavors. And so at Howard, I learned that my Blackness is not a hindrance. It is not a deficit. It is not something to put a chip on your shoulder, but rather it is the very thing that sets me apart. And that is something to be embraced. I learned about my history. My very first day, I learned that President Barack Obama and the first registered slave, John Punch, are related via his mother.
Wow.
Right? When you learn about Tulsa, about Watts, when you learn about the Kush in ancient Egypt, when you learn about your history, other people cannot go off and tell you about yourself because you already have it within you. And the last thing that I think about, Cardi Woodson, he says that, if you take someone's education, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you take someone's education, if you remove education from them, you do not have to worry about their actions, because you may cut off an arm, you may try to lock me up, you may try to put me under the jail cell, you may try to cancel me, you may try to blacklist me. But one thing that you will never, ever be able to take from me is what is in my mind.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So let me ask you this as a follow-up question to this. Do you sometimes think that you want to learn or would want to know what your feelings would be like if you went to a PWI?
No, because I did that. When I was in high school, I had the opportunity. There's something called a PSEO, a post-secondary education opportunity in Minnesota, in which, starting my sophomore year of high school, I actually attended classes on the campus of the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. So I would commute to Minneapolis from my high school. I was on a college campus at a PWI. I did not miss anything, frankly. And this argument that, well, I won't go to an HBCU because I want to know what the real world feels like. Or last time I checked, Howard University, there's some real people there, real human beings with real professors, with real grades, with a real tuition, with a real dorm. And why would you cancel yourself out from having an experience in which everyone, and if not everyone, a great deal, a majority of the people surrounding you, your classmates, your professors, your counselors, even the lunch lady, right? That they have your best interests in heart, that they understand your experience. You do not have to explain to them what a bonnet is. You know what I mean? There are cultural contexts that transverse education. You go in your classroom and you have a conversation about economic theory, but they use the example of BET. They tell you, well, yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about philosophy, but you're going to read this Tupac song, right? I can relate to that more than I can relate to Cicero, or I can connect deeper in a more intimate way with a Chadwick Boseman watching Black Panther to understand the dynamics of colonization better than watching some, PBS or History Channel documentary from 1975. And so I will never talk down on a PWIs and say that, it's inferior or better. But if you are a Black person, I will always recommend attending an HBCU, either in the undergraduate level. And if you don't do it in the undergrad, no hate, but get your grad degree from an HBCU. There is a certain lens, perspective, and pedagogy that is developed at an HBCU that trains you not only to understand the written material, but also at a deeper level, how to understand how that impacts your community. And more importantly, what you can do about it.
I want to tell you something. You're hitting on some things that, oh my God, they are very valuable. And I've already started to think in my mind, because we're definitely going to need to have you back. It's a conversation that we're going to have about that, because
Yeah.
there are so many people. There even include even people that grew up when I was growing up. Is that a lot of people honestly felt that PWIs was the way to go.
Hmm.
And again, that's that whitewashing that happens, that for some people, I don't know what happens, but it kind of sinks in, because it's like that's best, but HBCUs were less. And I even say this to a lot of young kids today. This includes nieces and nephews that I have that are around the same age as you. Is that you need to go to an HBCU. You have to, because you write about the scope and the lens and what things look like, but also you get to learn the real facts that you're never going to get at a PWI. And I'm not saying that that makes them less or whatever have you, but that kind of philosophy is like really, really different. Because think about it, at Harvard, they're teaching Tupac. And see, that in itself, to me personally, I find that insulting. I find it insulting. And I find it insulting is because, it's like trying to teach Black culture in this whole other place where a
Hmm.
lot of people are not ever going to learn or understand what that is when it comes to the bare bone facts. But this is what they're teaching. And so I've never been able to understand that.
Well, I think it connects with status. It is proximity. Everyone has been told their entire lives that Harvard is the best school in the world. It's the oldest school. It's not. William and Mary's is older than Harvard, but I digress. Either way, but it's one of the oldest learning institutions in the country, and half of the Supreme Court attended the school. Majority, great deal of presidents, elected officials, people in power, people who tell and dictate how this world operates. Attend at Harvard or an Ivy League institution. I don't speak from a place of hate because I got in, right?
Right.
So I mean, I'm not hating from outside the club, and those
Right.
schools have value, and they are valuable, and also those schools. I remember I was at a conference and someone asked, "Well, raise your hand if your law school taught you that your clients are more than just numbers or billables." And I was the only person who rose their hand. And I'm looking to the left or right of me like, well, what type of school you go to? We learned that the very first day. To be a social engineer, to be an attorney, you can either be a social engineer, you can be a parasite to society, to see individuals as human beings, not just number. I'm sitting here like, wait, that doesn't even seem ethical, you know? Like, but at the same time, status. It looks good, and the media further perpetuates that, and culture further perpetuates that. You can buy a Harvard hoodie at H&M, right? You can go to Target, if you still go there, or at any retail shop, and you can buy a Columbia or a Yale hoodie, not because you attended the school, but because there is a connotation with what those institutions mean in society. But I'll be the first to tell you, um, Howard University is older than a majority of these quote unquote best schools. In the legacy of Howard University. Our law school was founded in 1869, 2 years after the Civil War. I'm sorry, 4 years after the Civil War ended. Howard University undergrad was founded in 67, so 2 years after. These institutions shape the very fabric of society that we live in today. When you think about Dred Scott, the Dred Scott decision, we learned that most law schools, if they do teach it, they'll teach it in constitution law. I learned that in civil procedure. I learned that not only the basis of this case was that there was a black man who tried to sue. It doesn't matter what happened after, but there was a black man that tried to bring forth a lawsuit. And the Supreme Court, instead of even arguing or deciding on the merits of the case, said, you're a black man. You're not a citizen. You have no standing, right? And so we're going to dismiss this case.
Yep.
Which then we have the 14th Amendment coming out later on, which was heavily advocated by Black and brown folks, mainly Howard Law School alumni. And the first sentence in the 14th Amendment is a complete reversal, saying that all people born or naturalized are citizens, right? And so you talk about founding fathers and you bring up, John Hancock and Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, but you don't include Frederick Douglass or, Harriet Tubman, or you don't include the people that, reconstructed the country after the alleged, perfect documents that we had caused the country to break apart. But we don't talk about that because it's not pretty. It doesn't fit the idea of American exceptionalism. But you need to know the truth. And not to say that PWIs do not teach the truth. At an HBCU, I can assure you that you will learn the whole truth, the double truth, Ruth.
There's a comment here in the chat. Let me just show it to you here. And this is from Soroya Mia. This is just passing through. Hello to host and guests. Hello and thank you for joining. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this wonderful show. So, tell us this: how did Howard Law shape your understanding of the law as a tool for liberation?
So, when the average person thinks about attorneys or law in general, it's from a punitive perspective. I broke the law, I need an attorney now, or someone broke the law, or this law is unfair, this law discriminates, this law, what have you. But we don't think about the Civil Rights Acts that created new opportunities and spaces for individuals to actually bring suit to advocate for themselves. We don't mention the 30, 40-year endeavor of Charles Hamilton Houston and company to completely dismantle legal segregation through schools, right? At Howard University School of Law, in every single class, from my doctrinals to my upper level courses, yes, we discussed the law, the black letter law, and the analysis and the notes that come with that. But then we have a further discussion on, and what would you have done differently? In our very first semester, we are challenged, saying, you're the judge now. You have all the facts. You have all the law. What would you have done differently? And I think when you change your perspective from a place of being offensive versus defensive, it enables you to have an even larger imagination. If the law is not on your side, then there are public policy reasons. There are larger geopolitical ramifications that you can consider. There are psychological, sociological, other interdisciplinary perspectives that you can consider when arguing that, you know what, sure, the law's not on our side. That doesn't mean we give up. It sounds like we need to change the law then. And you know what? I'll do the work for you. This is what it actually should be, right? This is the framework in which we all succeed. And so I remember sitting in classes especially even my movement lawyering clinic, right? The idea of not just being an attorney who tells your client, hey, this is how it is, this is what you're going to do, shut up and pay me. You enter a space as co-laborers with a shared vision and idea of, okay, what do you want to occur within the bounds of law? And if it is not within the bounds of law, how can we be strategic in ensuring that what we do is rooted in justice? Because an unjust law is no law at all. And what can we do from a grassroots level, and an advocacy level, from a media perspective level, to ensure that it is being communicated in a way to the general public and to the powers that be, in a way that everyone collectively can get on the same page?
Wow. Can you tell us what professors or mentors at Howard had the greatest impact on your journey?
The first individual coming to mind is none other than attorney Angela Minor. She is the chair at the School of Communications, Strategic Legal Management Communications department. She also serves as the head coach for the Howard University speech and debate team and mock trial teams. And she's a full-time attorney as well. And I took her mock trial class. I took her, issues of ethics and communications. I took her public speaking classes, and sitting in her office hours, she really inspired me not only to even consider a career in law, but to be one who builds things, one who sees the world, sees where there may be a gap, a deficiency, and add value. I think that she is probably the most influential or impactful professor in my undergraduate experience. But in law school, Professor Homer LaRue, he taught me civil procedure, section 2, the best section out of all the schools, and you can argue with your mothers if you think otherwise. But he taught me to read the rule. Read the rule in its entirety. Read the comments. Read the preface. Read the notes. Do research on the writer, the author, the authority. He always said, "Oh, cool, great, that's a great idea. What is your authority? What authority? What can you draw? What tangible thing can you draw from that states that your position is the better or is correct?" I also think about Professor Patricia Worthy, a class of 68, 69, Howard University School of Law, worked on the March on Washington, the original one. And she taught us how to carry ourselves. I remember wearing suits in particular to her class on Wednesdays. And she showed us that to be a Black attorney is to be 100 times better than everyone else and receive 10% of the credit.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so she would cold call us and she'd ask us questions, and she said, and you expect someone to pay you $500 an hour with that response? Oh, okay. So no one read. Oh, so you want to waste my time? I'll just walk out. But you learn that this stuff matters. She said, what we are doing is life or death. There is an urgency to be a zealous advocate is to be someone who wakes up in the morning and thinks, how can I make my client's day better? How can I make their life better? And you go to sleep thinking the same way. And it's that tenacity, the ability. And then finally, I'll say Professor William Sherman Rogers, who taught entrepreneurship law and business organizations. He taught us that you can be your own boss, that you can be the individual that creates the next Meta, the next Google, that creates the next Gucci, that creates the next sports team that owns. We taught the value of wealth, not in a capitalistic accumulate as much as I can perspective, but from a, okay, you can build up this wealth, and how are you sowing back into your community? How are you investing in the next startup? How are you mentoring? How are you giving back? I mean, my entire experience at Howard is centered on speaking truth to power, veritas, and serving others, utilitas. Veritas et utilitas, in truth and service. That is the model of Howard University.
So to follow up on this, because what you said something in the beginning that more than piqued my interest. What was the premise and the purpose to reading the rule?
The purpose for reading the rule is that very often, attorneys are busy and you're handling multiple cases at a time. And if you are defending, or if you are, on a plaintiff's side, and you are accusing someone of breaking some type of law, right? Every single law has elements within. And if you fit all of these elements, or you fit most of these elements, then boom, you constitute a violation of this crime, or you constitute, oh, yep, then this law is being broken or challenged. And there can be a comma can make all the difference. And versus or makes all the difference. All versus most of the time. And so we learn to read every single letter, every single word. And the very first case that we read in that class, I'm not going to tell you all, for any of my pre-law students, you're just going to have to get it like we all got it. But it was just so many different rules stacked into it. And he would ask us a question, okay, so that's this is the judge wrote that this is a counterclaim. A counterclaim, meaning that one side is going against another side of the litigation. But read the words. What occurred? This is one side going against another party on the same side. That's a cross claim. And a cross claim has a completely different set of rules than a counterclaim. And if you did not catch that, then that is the difference between you winning or losing, which is why you need to read the rule.
That's what's up. How did the culture of Howard sharpen your leadership?
Howard University treats you like family from day one. And not in a toxic, like, oh, I'm gonna be all up in your business and so on and so forth. But I'll never forget, I had to go and speak or do some sort of an off campus, so I was gonna miss class. And so I'm walking out the building, and a classmate's like, oh, where are you going? We got class in 5 minutes. Where do you think you're going? And I said, oh, I got to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay. All right, then. Well, I'll send you the notes. But we're going to see you tomorrow then, right? Howard taught me to care about the people to the left and the right of me. They always say in law school, look to the left and right of you, half of you are going to be gone when it's all said and done. They don't do that at Howard Law School. They say, look to the left and the right of you. You should make it your mission to ensure that these are the same people that you see 3 years from now when you all cross the stage. We don't rip notes out of textbooks, and we don't hide answers from people or tell someone the wrong thing so that they get embarrassed themselves in class. But what we are taught, we're taught to lead with love. And because I love you as my brother-in-law, as my sister-in-law, as my family, I am not going to let you fall below the standard. I am not going to allow you to self-select out. I'm not going to allow you to fail. And I think being leaders, it's very easy to support the person that's got everything working together. It's very easy to advocate for that person. But what about the person who's struggling, who's slipping through the cracks, who very much so may have the same amount of potential, even greater, than that all-star golden student, but just hasn't been seen yet and hasn't been given that attention? And I think that Howard really taught me that to be a leader is to be a servant first.
Wow. See, that's truly excellent because now was it that's a segue here to this next question here about Howard. And that is, what does it mean to be part of the long lineage of Howard trained lawyers?
It's humbling. It's very humbling to attend, having graduated from the same institution as the first Black Supreme Court justice, the um, the list goes on and on and on. The first Black blank, one of the first Black women to graduate from a law school. Period. Charlotte E. Ray. I think about Belford Lawson or Pauli Murray. I think about Patricia Robert Harris. Even my own professors. This school was created in a time where Black people were killed for simply using their voice, for simply existing. This school survived a postbellum, Reconstruction period, Noir period, darkest time. It survived lynchings. It survived several iterations of DC local government. It survived the civil rights movement. It survived the DC riots, the 1968. It survived the Great Depression. It survived continuous chastisement and continuous belittling and othering and devaluing and under-resourcing. And not only has it survived, but it has thrived. To be a part of a legacy of an institution that very much so is the reason why I can go down the street and go to any grocery store I want to, go to a movie theater. Howard University School of Law is the most impactful law school in the world, in my opinion. And, there is a heaviness, there is a weight, there is a burden that you carry as a graduate of this school. And it's not from a position of a pressure, or it is the understanding that you are called. You are called to be a leader. You are called to speak for the least of these. If not you, then who? Who else in this room? You're the only one. So what are you going to do about it? And I really do take that near and dear to my heart. And every day, I do my very best to ensure that I am not tarnishing the legacy, but I'm finding a way to build it. That each and every day I am making the world and leaving the world better than I found it. That is the least, that's the least I could do for an institution that has molded and shaped me to be the man that I am today.
Let's move over here. Let's talk a little bit about a little bit more in depth about Brothers-in-Law Inc. and its founding and vision.
Yeah.
So tell us what inspired you to create Brothers-in-Law Inc.
So I think it goes back to that sixth grade experience. It's the idea of, well, who is advocating for the others? And being told in sixth grade that you are predestined to fail. I looked around on my campus and I saw that there was a need for a community for people who were told no their entire lives. And not for us to do this thing called the pursuit of purpose in silos. And so what led me to create Brothers-in-Law was the idea and understanding that we win when we all win. And in order to do that, that means we need to be connected with the elders and the sages who have already gone and forged the path. But we also need to ensure that the babies, that the children, that the youth are empowered and connected so that they can continue on that legacy. And so the idea of from as early as kindergarten, and we work with even preschoolers, 2, 3-year-olds, connecting them with people that are 20, 30 years in their career and building a continuous chain link of mentorship, of support, of professional development, of service and stewardship to their communities. You know, I have worked and had the opportunity to, be a part of several student-led organizations and movements. And I've learned things as I have gone along the way. And I just think that the time that we are in today, where people feel like they don't have anybody that sees them, and they don't know the answers, and they don't even know where to go to even find them in the first place. And we live in a world where most of our elected officials are the age of our grandparents. And that dictates the perspective of policy that we see today. They're not worried about what's happening in 40 years because they're not going to be here in 40 years. We will. And so through Brothers-in-Law, the idea is to build a platform, to build an ecosystem where students are empowered to lead with authority and also to lead with context and perspective from generations that have come before them, so that what we do today is not for a short time. It is not a momentary fix, a Band-Aid, but we are stitching together generations and experiences to create a solution that really heals, not just at the superficial level, but heals deep intergenerational trauma and wounds.
So, why was it important to build a pipeline starting as early as kindergarten?
Because they're building a pipeline into the prison as early as kindergarten. If we can build a, if you know, school to prison pipeline, if we can build a pipeline into prison, we might as well build a pipeline to the people that defend them,
That's
the people
true.
that advocate, and prosecutors that have some empathy, that have some cultural context, that understands the situation, and can commute these sentences, can restorative that focuses on rehabilitation, restorative justice, and not just punitive. You did something wrong, and now the rest of your life is over, right? It's important to speak to the youth, because now I'm going to put on my wife's psychologist hat. From 0 to 5, that is the most important stage, one of the most important stages of development. That is, you go from literally drinking your mother's milk to, at 5, you're walking and talking, running around, eating chicken wings, right? And so you have a whole new thing, a whole this as you are learning and as you're experiencing more and more life. It is important that at a very early age that you have an understanding of who you are, you have an understanding of how this world works, and how you can contribute to it. And you think about emerging adulthood from 18 to 25. We leave our the house or the home of our upbringing, and we go out into the world, and we have to reconcile what we were taught growing up with what we want to be in the future to what we are experiencing today. And you cannot do that alone. And don't let anybody fool you. You can't. No one, none of these billionaires, none of the elected officials, none of these CEOs, none of them did this by themselves.
Exactly.
And so, what would it look like? Because we also live in a digital world, ever growing world. We're not just connect. We're not. People don't know their next door neighbors, right? People don't know the local postman. They don't even know the name of their own superintendent, right?
Right.
What does it look like to be in community from a very early age, so that it's not a culture shock when you get to a Howard University and you're like, "Oh, I can't trust these people. These people don't want to be my friends. They really just an enemy, and they don't have my best interest." Or you have secure attachments at an early age, people that you can look to, that can help guide you and navigate this life, and you're also guiding and navigating others on the flip side of that as well. So in kindergarten, you learn the building blocks of life. You learn, you learn how to the basics of reading and writing, and you learn how to share. You learn how to interact in a large group. You should also learn how the law impacts you. And we're not talking about, if I could just quick, sidebar, as someone who actually took critical race theory at the graduate level, that's not what we're doing. It's not. No, you should be able to know that the House consists of, you know, over 400 people. The Senate is 60 people. You should understand what federalism is. You should have an understanding of, why do we vote? What does a school board even do? Why are libraries, and what is the value of a public library? Why are there potholes in the road? Why does my school have textbooks from 1995, and in the district over to the next to me, they have tablets? These are not upper level, high, difficult concepts to grasp. They're just concepts that we don't want to share, because that would change the perspective of the system. But maybe that perspective needs to be changed.
I agree with you 500% on that because, there's a lot that's wrong with that whole thing, you know. But again, you must have been, you're all up on my list here because My next question to you is like, what gap did you see in the legal profession that your
Yeah.
organization seeks to fill?
Intergenerational,
Mhm.
multi-ethnic community. We have Black Law Student Association. We have the Asian Law Student Association. We have Latinx Alianza. We have atypical. We have disabled. We have parents. We have the immigrant organizations. We have all these variety of affinity groups. And let me be the first to tell you, what I'm not saying is that we need to get rid of them. That's no. But what is connecting them? What is
Good question.
bringing together these various groups to be not necessarily get a seat at the table, but how are we grabbing the plywood and the hammers and the nails and building our own? A more just society is not one in which a singular group's ideas supersede everything else. But a more just society is one in which everybody gets together. We air out our grievances. We share, you know what? I don't agree with you that this, but I do agree with you on that.
Mhm.
And you know what? I don't like the way you do this, but could you teach me how to do that? And if we're so focused, hyper focused on how do I get mine, me, there is no me in wealth, but there is we. We. How do we collectively put away our differences and practice law? Practice law for the betterment of all of our clients. How do we represent a young Black kid who grew up on the other side of the train tracks, who may not have had the same opportunities afforded to someone who may have attended a private school? How do you represent them? How do you talk to them? How do you connect with someone whose English is not their very first language and they're still learning, but they have a traffic ticket or they have an immigration status hearing? How are we ensuring that this profession represents the best interests of people and not profit? And that requires, a multifaceted problem requires multifaceted solutions.
So, how do you define pipeline justice?
Hmm. I define pipeline justice in a few words. One, access. This upcoming Saturday, brothers-in-law is going to go to a golf course, and in the morning for 2 hours for completely gratis, they're going to teach community members and whoever wants to show up how to play golf. Why? Not just because it's a fun thing to do. It's a pastime. It's an activity. But there is an understanding in the business and the corporate and the political world that this game of golf, you spend 6 hours on a golf course, that business is done, deals are made, connections are made, negotiations happen, mediations happen. But if you're so focused on how to hold your club and so insecure and feel out of place, then you're gonna block your own blessing because you're so caught up in your own head. And so we bring down that barrier by teaching people how to golf. And that is something that you can go on and pass on to generations. And it's access. We took people bowling in the White House, people that have never even been inside the White House. And that's an activity that not many people, even who work in the White House, are afforded. But it's to know that you belong here as well, that you can step foot in here. Get used to the looks and the turned up faces and the jealousy. Get used to it. Because where you are going in this life There are going to be haters, but you need to have access to these things. Going to the ballet. Black people are not a monolith, right?
Mhm.
Access to a community garden, having ideas and understanding of home economics, of agriculture, of hygiene. That's what pipeline building is. It's a holistic approach to education itself. It's not just reading, writing, arithmetic. It's how can I be a contributing member to society? And the moment that I graduate, the moment that I leave the house that I was raised in, that I can go off and give back. So it's access, but it's also it's also opportunity, and that's different. Because an opportunity, and you get that through access, is now we're on the golf course. Okay, I have a buddy of mine who has this internship program. Are you interested? Because at the end of the day, merit is not everything. And just because you're smart does not mean that you are going to be successful. Just because you work hard does not mean that you'll be successful or get the things that you want. You have to know somebody. There has to be someone that can advocate for you in rooms that you have never entered yet. So when you talk about pipeline building, it is about giving individuals access to a world, this big old world that they may have never even experienced, and then giving them the opportunity to shine, to thrive, to learn, and to experience things bigger than their wildest dreams.
So we also in our chat we were discussing Black history, and
Mhm.
I asked you who were the most influential people in your life and career in Black history. You told me Charles Hamilton Houston,
Yes.
Thurgood Marshall, Langston Hughes, and Stokely Carmichael.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how has Charles Hamilton Houston shaped your understanding of the law as a tool for social engineering?
Brother Charles Hamilton Houston, I call him, he is my fraternity brother. He's also a charter member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Mu Lambda chapter, the chapter that I am housed in. But what he taught me through his writings, through what I have learned about his life, is that you have to fight for it. Change, advancement does not occur from a posture of comfortability.
Mhm.
It does not happen through happenstance, but it requires you to have a plan. And that man, he devised a plan that completely dismantled de jure segregation, the idea that because of the color of my skin, I am subjugated to have this specific experience. He taught me that in order to dismantle apartheid, because that's what occurred in this country, it was racial apartheid, it requires us to build from a foundational level and to chip away at the rationale and the hateful rhetoric and the pseudoscience. You chip it down, you chip it away brick by brick. Rome was not built overnight, and it certainly did not collapse overnight either. And so when you talk about large institutions of power, what I learned through him is that you use the law as both a sword against injustice as well as a shield for the oppressed.
So, how has Thurgood Marshall influenced your commitment to justice and advocacy?
Brother Thurgood Marshall. I had to throw that in again. I can't help it. There's a lot of alphas in law. Servants of all. First of all, servants of all. First of all, servants of all. What I learned from Brother Thurgood Marshall is that you cannot dictate your own legacy. You can't. All you can do is your very best. Thurgood Marshall graduated top of the class at Howard University School of Law, #1. He then went on and worked with Charles Hamilton Houston through the NAACP, went on to found the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And he did this in part in a similar situation as my own. He applied to law school. He applied to his home state of Maryland, University of Maryland. He wasn't rejected. They didn't even give him a chance. He said, "We don't admit Black people here." And that inciting incident to now 30 years later, him arguing before the Supreme Court that not only do I belong here, but you need me here. It takes a certain level of resilience to be able to defy all odds, to be the first. And what I admire about him the most was that he spoke truth to power. He read the rules. He could tell you the footnote 4, 5, 6, 7. He had a well-versed grasp of the law, but not just the law. He had an understanding that, when you think about the Dawes experiment that was integrated into Brown v. Board of Education, that it requires more than just the law. The law is but a cornerstone into society at large. And so in order for you to get the full picture, you have to step outside of the courtroom. And that's exactly what he did.
How has Langston Hughes shaped your imagination, creativity, or sense of identity?
Langston Hughes, he said it best. He said, "Let America be America again." He said, "Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me." Langston Hughes taught me that my dreams are more than just figments of my imagination that occur while my body is resting, but that it is prophecy toward a future vision and to a future reality. He taught me that dreams are important, but eventually you have to wake up and you have to put your feet on the ground and you're gonna have to get your hands dirty. And you cannot let it dry up and fester like a raisin in the sun. But he taught me that to be Black in America is to be a walking contradiction. To be powerful internally and yet powerless externally. He taught me to see the world not as Black and white, but as Black, white, and brown, and purple, and blue, and red, and yellow, and to appreciate culture, appreciate poetry, appreciate theater, to appreciate how art impacts our own understanding of even our own selves. And so, yeah, that he's probably the main reason why I am even a poet myself.
And last question. How has Stokely Carmichael influenced your understanding of movement building?
Mm. Stokely Carmichael, another graduate of Howard University. He coined the phrase Black Power. While a student, he was fundamental in the development of the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee. And he taught me that it does not matter your age. And you do not necessarily need to be 20, 30 years in your career to make a difference. That movement building requires an understanding of both self and of other. And that the best movements are the ones not for the advancement of a singular cause, a single issue voter, if you will. But the best movements are built upon a foundation and understanding that through our collective power, we are more powerful than any single elected official, than any singular judge, than any singular law, than any singular counselor, any singular teacher, any singular law enforcement official. But through our collective power, we are more powerful than power itself.
Well, in closing, do you please do you have some words of wisdom and encouragement for our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via social media, how to contact you, or to connect with you via your website. Any
Yes,
of those things.
sure. So you can find me on the social medias. Again, I'm Gen Z. So you can find me on TikTok at Attorney Edge. I'm also on Substack where I do a lot of writing on these ideas and topics. Attorney Edge again. You can find me on Instagram, I believe, at Attorney Edge as well. And anywhere you Google my name, David Edgerton III, uh, you can find me. We can connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to be able to have a conversation. And people love saying, "Let's connect." No, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. And I think my parting words of wisdom is it's a quote that I first heard from my pastor, and I tell the children and the youth that I mentor, or anybody that in any role of leadership that I am, and it's this: I want you, audience, to wake up every single morning, jump out of bed, ready to take on the day. And I want in the back of your mind, in every action you do, and every thought that you have, and every word that you say to someone, challenge yourself and say, am I living a life worth imitating? That's all you can do.
Well, I'll tell you, before I do my closing monologue, I just want to tell you that I'm so happy and so appreciative that you brought your knowledge and your energy to what it is to building and being a part of community and why that's so important. But the thing that you added to it that was so much value is that HBCU experience,
Mm.
because that in itself is its own separate part, its own separate lane of Black legacy. the Black experience as a whole. And I appreciate that so much because we definitely got to have you back on the show.
I love it.
And so, for those of you that are watching on all of our channels, including our YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed, I ask if you would please support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications so that any show that we have, you'll get that show live when it first comes out. But you'll also have the opportunity to go back to our channel and watch all of the previous outstanding guests that we've had here. That's actually that people that are doing their parts to help to connect and to build our communities, one community at a time, all around this country, where we're now connecting internationally as well. So, my closing monologue tonight is this. Tonight, we witness the power of vision, not just the ability to see what is, but the courage to build what should be. David Edgerton III reminds us that leadership is not a title, but a responsibility. It is the work of shaping institutions, expanding opportunity, and preparing the next generation to lead with integrity, imagination, and purpose. From brothers in law to the right, to learn, from brothers in law to the right to learn, from the youth ministry to community programs, from the courtroom to the classroom, David is carrying forward the legacy of Houston, Marshall, Hughes, and Carmichael, giants who understood that liberation requires strategy, discipline, and love for our people. As we close, let us remember the future is not something we wait for. It is something we build brick by brick, child by child, generation by generation. Thank you for joining us for this powerful conversation. I'm Charles Zachary King, and this has been America in Black and White. Stay inspired, stay committed, and stay in the work. Good night.
Good night.
We'll see you guys tomorrow for Final Word Friday.